when I record it, I'm going to go ahead and I'll invite you to a Teams, and then I'll put that out there on the Teams, and you'll be able to get it. So it might take me a little bit to get that done, but we will get it out there for you in the next couple days, so you guys can pass it on to those who aren't here today. Looks like we got a pretty good crowd. We got about 40 people here, so hopefully some more people join. But I just want to just go over a few things that I think are really important. I'm not going to show you a ton of screens. I don't want to take your time up with that. You guys can watch the videos. Those videos, I feel like, will give you 99% of what you need. So I just want to go over some high level stuff to make sure that you're aware of some of the things that might happen. So as we talk about videos, first off, the first thing I'd say to principals is go watch the delegate approval video. That will allow you to then give you some authority for your secretaries to go and do two things. They'll be able to change punches, they'll be able to approve change punches, and they'll be able to approve missed punches. Principals, that will take a huge burden off you if you allow your secretaries to do that. And it's similar to what they were doing before. They were giving you the time cards pretty much ready to sign. So same idea, it'll give you that ability to do that. So go watch that video and go get that done. It'll be a huge help. You can also give leave requests to one of your admin interns or your admin intern if you only have one. That will allow them to approve leave. Now, when you delegate something, just so you're aware, it's not like you're forwarding approvals. You're delegating it, meaning that you'll both still get the notices, but you can just not worry about them and let your secretary worry about them. So the next video I would say for all of you to go watch is the timesheet summary video. If you haven't watched that video, that page is going to be the page you're going to use 90% of the time to keep up on things. What that does is it allows you to see everything. So I'm actually going to show you that really fast just so you have an idea of what it looks like. So give me a second. I'm going to share my screen. And share, that should be it. So this is the timesheet summary screen. I pulled it up for Woods Cross High. It's going to show you everything that's going on at your school. So it will show you all of your employees. It will show you what everyone's working. So how many hours they've worked this week, how many contract hours they were supposed to work. It'll give you their total hours that includes leave. And it also breaks it out by remote pay type. So with remote pay type, you can just look for remote pay to see who has remote pay and what they have. The other stuff you might see is you'll see overtime, comp time, and then you can also link right directly to their week summary. So it should allow you to be able to go and visit someone if you want to see, not visit, but you can't visit them, sorry, from here. We don't have that kind of teleportation. But you can see their weekly summary from here and be able to see what their time looks like. This is a really important one. It's done by week. So you can pick any week you want, go in there and pick the week you want. You can search it by regular type of pay or by remote pay or both. So I can individually go in there and see exactly what I want to look at. I would say this would be my go-to report to keep track of my employees. Just to make sure I can look on, we don't have an overtime report that kind of alerts you yet, but principals, supervisors, as you look through this on Wednesday night, maybe Thursday morning, you can go out there and see, wow, they've already worked their full hours for the week. I probably should talk to them about their work day today because they're going to be over hours and I need to make sure why they're over hours for this week. So this will give you that ability as a supervisor to manage your employees a little bit more and see where their time's at instead of doing it at the end of the month and looking backwards. Now you'll have to be able to look at a live view. So I'm going to stop sharing that. And I'm going to go back to just one other thing. Secretaries, I would go out and be sure to watch that remote pay, how to clean up remote pay. You can start doing that now. Take a few minutes, watch that video, and get that remote pay cleaned up as soon as you can. It's going to be a real key because if you don't clean up your remote pay, anyone who has an assignment will be able to clock into that assignment. And if it's not a valid assignment or you don't want them clocking into that, they'll be able to see that. The other one I would say is on the 16th, go out there and set up your school funded account. There's a video for that one as well. Get that set up so you don't have to worry about it later on in the month. Now, you may not have a whole lot of that, maybe some robotics, little things like that, but I would say get that one done as soon as we go live on the 16th. You won't be able to do that one yet because you can't get to it, but on the 16th of April, you'll be able to get to that one. All right, so I'm going to show you another screen really fast. I don't have a video on this one, unfortunately, but I do think it's really valuable, and I want you to take a minute and actually go look at it when you have it. Now, this again won't be available. You'll see it in the training database, which will have data in it, but it won't be live data. And we'll talk about that in a little bit when we talk about the training database. But the calendar view is, I think, going to be really helpful for most of you as supervisors, especially. Now, your secretary can see this as well. Managers can see this, and principals can see this. So this will give you the ability to go out there and look and see what's coming in the future. So I can go to the 30th of March and see that Kathy in my department's taking some hours off. And it will list everybody who's taking a day off. So if there's multiple people, it'll show everyone who's off that day. And this will help you when you're approving things to say, you know what, I've got a lot of people out that day. Maybe I can't approve that vacation that somebody wanted for that day. And let's have a talk about that because we're already understaffed for that day. So I really hope this calendar will be something as supervisors you use and keep track of your people. You can link right over to the records view. And this will be helpful to be able to go back and see what's happening. So I can go back to last month and I can search and look at all the time that someone took off for the last month if I want to kind of look at someone's leave and see who took off time during that month. So this is also a really helpful one, and you can link back and forth between the calendar view and the leave records view without having to do much. So I would say that's another one that you guys want to be really aware of and make sure you're using. So let's talk about leave for a minute. One thing we found in most schools that we put this in as a really helpful thing is to make sure that if you're using ASOP, which all of you should be, if a teacher takes off a day and there's no sub required, I would recommend that you ask or tell or however you want to treat that, but make sure that your teachers are putting in days off. I know it's more work, I get it, but it's going to help you out in the long run. If they'll go in there and put in a no sub required in ASOP, that will ensure that the correct leave is taken out, is input for one thing, and actually gets taken. And the secretaries can check that because they can print off the reports from ASOP and print off a leave report, and they can check those two things to make sure that that person actually took off leave when they were out that day. So you guys can handle what you want. Some people do paper and hand in paper every time they're gone. That's fine too. But I think this ASOP way is an easy way to electronically do it, and it doesn't cost a whole lot more time for an employee. A thing with part-timers, this is especially helpful, especially for custodial and cafeteria, as well as your part-time TAs. If you get a sub, if your part-timers are having a sub for them, I would recommend that they always put in part-time leave. Just make it a habit. If they're gone for a day, have them put in part-time leave. I think that will really help you in the times that you need to put in a sub for that person because the leave's already there. And you can just go in and put in the leave rather than having to go talk to them and say, hey, remember that day? I need you to go in and put in a leave because you need a sub for that day. So really helpful piece right there is making sure that if you have a sub who's going to get a person who's going to get a sub a lot, make them put in leave. Another report you're going to see out there is called unapproved timesheets. There's a video on this. This is extremely helpful to start looking at on the 16th. Now, principals, I don't have anything out there yet that will tell you that your timesheets are due by this date. We did make a small tweak this month. So as your people look at their timesheets, there'll be an action item in the top, and it'll be in a big yellow box. And it will say your timesheet needs to be approved. And it will now tell them the date that it needs to be approved by. That date is the date we're actually taking those off record, so they can no longer approve those. They come to us and we have to approve them at that point. So I know principals were working on a way to be able to give you access to have that date in there for you as well, but your secretaries can look at that and know what date because they're going to have a time card, what date that needs to be approved by. That will be really helpful. Make sure you get those done by that date, because if you don't, we're going to be in trouble. Because then I have to make a phone call to you to find out if that's okay to approve that, and then I end up approving it. So I'd prefer not to have to do that, and it would help me to make sure that the employee is truly approving their time card. The last thing on leave that I want to say is there's a leave type out there called other, and the custodians are very aware of this. They use this for their banked hours. But one thing you want to do is be careful, especially principals, that when you're approving leave, if you see other as a leave type, I would say you need to go question that person as to why they're using other. Now, your custodians are going to use it all the time. They're probably not an issue. But if you see a teacher who's using other leave, or a secretary or another person, I would say question that leave, because they probably ran out of leave and are trying to use other leave in lieu of having to use leave without pay. So we do have a way of checking that, and we'll be reaching out to you if we see those. But I would just say, if you see those, try to make sure you take care of them and make sure that other leave is really the needed leave for that. It's been used for comp time in the past too as well. So there's another reason for it, but going forward, comp time will be in the system. One other thing I want to talk about with classified. If you have a classified position and it's splitting behind the scenes, you're splitting programs behind the scenes. So you have an employee who's maybe a TA, and this year they're doing lunch duty, but it's just behind the scenes, it's splitting those dollar amounts. It's not necessarily two positions. They don't need to clock in for both of those positions because you're splitting it behind the scenes. However, if you are adding it as an assignment, you're giving them bus duty or lunch duty as an assignment, then they will need to clock in and clock out of both. Just to kind of let you guys know, right now we don't have a transfer punch, but starting today, the programmers are working on a transfer punch. So if you had two jobs, you were an office assistant and a TA, let's say, and you started your office assistant job and then you went to your TA job. Right now you have to punch in, punch out, punch in, punch out. In the future, and hopefully within the next couple weeks, you will be able to just go in, hit a transfer punch, select which job you're transferring from, and two, click transfer, and it will just transfer you automatically and do those punches for you. So I don't think we're very far out on that, so know that that's coming. I know it's a burden right now to have to clock in and clock out of two jobs, but hopefully by the time you guys go live, it might actually be ready. Another confusion that we've had when we put people on. So the full-time salaried non-exempt employees. So what this means is you have people that are anyone over 30 hours is receiving a salary from the district, meaning they're not getting paid by what they work. So anyone who's a salaried non-exempt employee has to clock out in and out of their job. So that means your custodians, your cafeteria managers, your secretaries, and anyone else who might be some of those positions. Now your teachers, your interns, we'll talk about those in a little bit, but those wouldn't matter as much. But just know that anybody who's 30 hours and above would have to clock in and out of the system unless they're exempt, meaning they're a teacher, a principal, those type of places. So be aware that those type of employees are eligible for comp time as well. So as a secretary, if they go above their 40 hours, then they would be eligible for comp time. The system will automatically calculate that and will give them a comp time bucket. One thing to do is, watch that timesheet summary. If you see someone's going to be over their hours, maybe go have a conversation and make sure you're okay with that person getting comp time. It really should be approved before you get it. You should have a conversation as an employee to say, hey, I'm not going to get my job done. It's going to take me this much time. Are you okay if I work some comp time this week? On that same note, anyone who's under 30 hours, they won't get comp time anymore. I know you may have had people in your office staff who kept track of hours, and they, instead of getting paid that week, they comped some stuff. That's not available anymore. That shouldn't really have been happening. Department of Labor doesn't like to give comp time to people who are not considered full-time. So we're doing away with that. So if you have someone who works over their hours as a part-timer, they'll just get paid. So if I work 18 hours this week and I'm supposed to only work 15, I'll get 3 hours of extra pay. there's really no way around it. They won't get comp time anymore. Please don't have them not use the system and give them comp time. That just puts us in a compromised situation and causes us problems. So, all right. Next thing I want to talk about is the training database. I hope all of you have the link to the training database. If you don't, it's in those PowerPoints I sent to you in the initial email I invited you to the thing. In that training database, you should be live right now. So you should be able to go to that training database, log in with your normal user and password, and you'll be able to play around as if you were actually in the system. This is a great way to help you guys not have to deal with a whole bunch of issues when you start up. I can promise you that earlier you get on the training database with your employees, the less problems you're going to have when you go live. So get on there. I would say, as soon as you can, I know we're just training today. I would say try to get your training done as soon as you can at your school and get it out to them. You could even send just the link and have them start playing around in there before you even train them. Have them watch the videos, have them start playing around, and your training is going to probably be pretty minimal at that point, because if they watch the videos and get into training database, they're going to be pretty easy to train. The one thing you have about the training database, though, and this is just a caveat of what it is, it will not work on a wireless device. So if you try to add it to a phone or an iPad, you have to use the computer for it to work. It's just the way it's set up. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to have them rework the whole system to allow it to be on wireless devices. So computers that are wired into the system, anything like that that's in the system will work. Also, you should have received iPads. You should have 3 of them. If you haven't received them or your STS hasn't told you about them, you should have 3 iPads. Those will not work yet because that link that's on them or the link that your STS sets up will not work until the 16th of the month. So just know those aren't working yet. On the 16th, they'll go live. You'll be able to use them. If any of you want, we have some small, they're a stand that's probably this tall. It can mount on a desk or it can mount on a wall. They're a locking device, so they lock those in there. If you want those and you haven't told us you want them yet, reach out to myself. You can email me and say, hey, I want those. You can have up to 3 because we gave you 3 iPads, or you already had 3 iPads, one of the 2. Those 3 iPads, I would put 1 in your office, 1 in your cafeteria, and 1 in your custodial. Those are really where those were meant to go. If you need something for someone else because you've got another place that you need one and we didn't provide you with enough, let me know as well, and we'll get you a 4th if you need 1 more for another spot. So if you want a 4th or you want the actual lock-in holders, let me know and we'll get those up to you. We've got a few left. We're gonna have to order some more. It might take a week or so for us to get them in, but we'll get them in as soon as we can. We are on my last training piece, and then you guys can either stay and we can have some questions and answer those, or we can go. But I want to talk one last thing. Teachers. So I know I've got some Title I schools here today. So in the past, Title I schools, everybody's been handed a green time card and you've all used them. That doesn't happen anymore. So only teachers who are either SPED funded or title or federally funded will have to punch in. So they only have to punch in once a day. It doesn't matter what time they punch in. They don't have to punch in the same time every day. They can punch in at 8 o'clock one day and noon one day and 2 p.m. the next day. It doesn't matter. 1 punch a day. And this is really for auditing purposes because they're funded by dollars that we get audited on. And that punch allows us to say that person worked in that day. So if you are good, just make sure you don't tell everyone at your school they have to punch in. Only those who are, title funded or SPED funded. Now, if you want to know who this is, your secretaries can run an organizational position report. And if you run that report, anyone who's in the 1,200 to 1,299 or the 7,000 to 799 range will be punching once a day. If they're outside of those budgets, you won't need to have them clock in once a day. Big change, I know, a little bit different, but I hope it will help your schools and maybe your people feel like we're not making them do so much. So all teachers will use the leave system. They won't all use the time system. So if you have questions on someone who's maybe split between two, reach out to me and we can have a discussion about that. Maybe someone's title or federally funded and you're also paying some of that out of your budget as well. On those ones, we're going to have to make a little tweak to it and do some things differently. So if you have some of those that are funded out of two accounts like that, that are federal or SPED, and then half another something else that are just a district account, let me know and we'll work through that. So, all right, guys, ladies, guys, I know I wanted to be brief. I know you have tons going on at your schools. I don't want to waste your time. I felt like these points were ones that we've had issues with the past and we had a lot of questions about. So please, if you want to stay on and you have time and you want to ask me some questions, I want to stay here and be available for as long as I need to be. If you want to go now and you have other things to get done and you feel like, hey, I'm good to go, I think I would leave you with my last word is the more you train and the more time you spend up front right now, the less time you're going to spend in the next month handling issues. So the schools who have done really well with that have reached out to everybody and got them trained and made them feel like they're ready to go on day one of April 16th. So I know we've got spring break coming up next week. I would try to hold my training as soon as I could after spring break. If you can't hold, obviously spring break's not a great time. So, but anyways, I'm going to say that's it for the training piece that I wanted to present. If you guys want to stay and ask questions, then just open up your mics and ask me a question and we can talk about it. So.
Just start talking.
Hey, Scott, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I just have one quick clarification. So
Sure.
We have a TA that, it goes back to the TA office assistant position.
Uh-huh.
So right now they need to clock in both of those, right? They'll have to
Yes.
Clock out of one, clock back into the other one
Yep.
until the transfer is done.
Until the transfer is done. Now, one thing you might do, and we've dealt with some of this, is if somebody has two positions, you might have them work all their hours in one position at the first of the week and then all their hours in the second position at the end of the week, if you can make that work. Some schools have done that and we don't care necessarily about that. We just need to have their hours allocated correctly for the budget. So if you wanted to do something like that where you tweak their hours a little bit and made them work differently, you could do something like that too.
Okay, thank you.
Question, this is Susan at Layton. We have a COVID aid, of course, like everybody else does, and a health aid. When the COVID aid has to stay longer, she just puts those hours in and then will end up getting overtime. Is that correct?
A COVID aid would probably be 19.5. Is that right, Susan?
Yes.
So she wouldn't get overtime, she would just get paid extra. So, but yeah, if you're okay with that and your budget's okay with that. Now, if it's a district budget and you're working extra hours, then you need to discuss that with us to make sure we're okay with them getting a lot of extra hours. But if they're, you've got funds and you want to have them stay longer because you choose to, then I would say that's a school funding thing. But if you, if you are not talking a ton of hours, we're probably okay. If you're talking they're going to work 29 instead of 19, we probably need to have your principal talk to RJ and make sure we can't make something different happen. So.
Okay, no, it was just, and it was earlier when things were, heightened, that she was making phone calls. And so we just adjusted her time, the next day.
Yeah, and that would be fine.
So that's still okay to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you can adjust time however you want. We don't care about the schedule. What we're looking at the district level is if they're 19.5 hours, they should be working 19.5 hours in a week. If however you work the schedule, we don't care.
All right. Our health aide had a diabetic student that was low at the end of our health aide shift. She put her hours in, she had her bag ready to go, and one of our students came in, and of course she immediately set everything down.
Sure.
Tested her, waited the 15 minutes. She was still low, so she had to, stay longer with her. So on situations like that,
I think we're okay with an exception on something like that.
Okay.
If it's the exception and not the rule, I think we're fine with them being over hours every now and then. So,
okay. All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan.
Scott, can you clarify just for Title I?
Sure.
So teachers don't clock in, and they don't clock in, they just use the leave and all of it that way.
Not correct. So
Okay,
teachers who are funded by title or by federal dollars need to punch once a day.
doesn't matter when?
Doesn't matter when their timesheet. So if you went out and watched the timesheet video, you would see that they have an in and out punch. For a teacher who's a once a day punch, they'll have one little green box in the middle. It'll click in. Once they click in, they won't see anything else, because what we had in the beginning was we had a bunch of people punching in multiple times a day. So once they punched in, that punch option will go away for them and it's in there. So you're going to find that, I'm guessing, I don't know, I would suspect that at most title schools, you maybe have 10 teachers that are funded by title. Is that correct? If that?
Well, if we're paying for a teacher, you may have one over, but I'm looking at, we may fund all of our after-school program, TAs. Sometimes with OEK, we've funded part of something.
So if it was a TA, they're going to be clocking anyways. So if you're
In and
talking,
out.
yeah, they're going to be clocking in and out no matter what. All TAs will be clocking in and out because they're all part-time.
Okay,
So, but teachers are specific. If funding's coming directly for that teacher from title funds or federal funds or SPED funds, that person needs to clock in and out. So that's why that organizational position report will really help you out. And if they're not title or one of those funds, they probably won't be set up. They probably won't be set up in the system to punch once a day, and they would only have access to the leave screen. So,
okay, thanks.
yeah. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
I'm back
Hi.
again, Susan at Layton.
Yep.
Title I school. Help me understand, not all of our teachers are paid from title funds?
No, because the district has to set you up like a normal school. So the district has to give you all of the positions we would normally give every other school, and then you get title dollars to come in and supplant. And so you may fund, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 teachers, maybe. I don't even know if you're funding that many, but you're going to fund a ton of TAs, a lot of extra staff to help with that kind of stuff, but you're not necessarily normally funding teachers from my understanding. Now, I may be out in left field, but my understanding would be you normally wouldn't have a ton of teachers, but there might be. So in most schools that I've done so far, there's been 1 or 2 SPED teachers, and then maybe 1 other person who's federally funded. Maybe in a title school, there might be 5 or 6 of those, but only those people will need to clock in once a day. Everybody else, that whole green time card, because we were just kind of blanket covering you, that goes away. So it should make a bunch of teachers happy because they don't have to fill out a time card anymore. They're just going to be able to just use the leave system. So
Okay, so we're Title I school, our ASC teachers would be federally funded, our SPED teachers would be federally funded, and a small handful of other teachers. Those are the only ones that have to do 1 punch a day anytime during the day. Everybody else just uses leave
that's
screen.
correct. Outside of
Thank
if you're
you.
classified, yep. Thanks, Susan.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have 2 prep teachers that we supplement their pay. So they'll do their 12 hours and then we usually will supplement it with our title funds. How do they clock in and out with that?
So are you giving them a remote pay assignment to do that with?
Yes.
So they'll just clock into that remote pay assignment. So they'll have an option on their screen that'll be a drop-down box that will show both their job, they'll show their job and it'll show the remote pay assignments, and they'll just go in there and they'll, in that drop-down box, they'll click the second job and they'll clock into that and clock out of that, and that's how it does. Pretty
Okay.
simple.
Because I usually wait till they've used up all their hours and then I'll supplement. So it's probably better that they do all of their hours first on their regular contracted, right? And then
However you want to do it, yeah, whatever makes it
Do it that
easier.
way?
You can do it however you want. It doesn't really matter.
Okay.
So if they have a good time frame where you could have them clock in for 2 and then clock out and clock in for 2 more, that would work too. It just depends. So less clocking with doing one job at a time. With the transfer punches though, I think it'll become fairly easy to transfer jobs and it won't be as big of a deal.
Okay, thank you.
Scott, I have 2 quick questions. First of all, the schools that have been successful in rolling this out, have they just used for their training purposes the PowerPoint you provided? Is there some other strategy you want us to use as far as training our people? Like what your recommendation is for that?
So my recommendation to you would be, one, for sure, here's the 2 things I would say.
Okay,
Make sure everybody has their username and password. That's
Okay.
been the biggest problem. Make sure they have their Encore username and password. And then get them on the training database as soon as you can. Because
Okay.
when they start using the system, they're gonna realize it's not as big of a deal as they thought it was. And
Okay.
they're gonna work through those issues of like missed punches. The other thing I would say is set reminders. Have people use their phones, have people use their calendars to remind them to clock in and clock out. If I'm going to lunch, set a 30-minute timer if I'm taking a 30-minute lunch, or an hour timer if I'm taking an hour lunch. Because those are the ones that people miss most often, it seems like, is those lunch punches. And then if they miss those, then it comes back to someone having to do a missed punch for them. So that kind of goes up, it rolls downhill. And so you end up having more work to do. So, but training wise, so I've seen a few things done. They've trained their classified staff differently than their teachers. So
Okay.
they've met with their classified staff and gone over that with them, shown them, given them the videos, and then done their teachers separately. Another thing I've seen done that I thought was a really good idea is sending out a video a day. So saying, hey, here's the clock in, clock out video. Hey, here's the leave video. Hey, here's the approving your time card video, and doing that one a day for those kind of while you're training, to give them one thing to watch and not overwhelm them. So those are some of the things I've seen. And honestly, people have done all kinds of stuff, and we have had such great success with this. I'm really surprised, honestly, how well it's gone out. So.
Okay, no, that's great feedback. And then my second question, I don't know if it's actually been necessary, but in the past, my ASC teacher has sort of looked over all of her TA's time cards, and she's actually signed them. Does an ASC teacher actually have a role in this system at all?
No, because it's all
Okay.
based around Evaluate Davis. So everything's
Okay,
following
that's what I
Evaluate
thought.
Davis.
Okay, since I'm the supervisor, she didn't need to attend this training, or she won't have a role. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Crystal, did I ask the right 2 things? All right, thank you. Thanks, Scott.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. No more brave questions? Come on, Robbie. I know you got a question. Okay, well, I'm gonna cut it off unless somebody has a last second question that they really want to ask. I don't want to waste any more time of anybody. I feel like it's 9:35. I told you 30 minutes. I'm already 4 minutes over. So,
Scott,
yeah,
this is Alicia. I have a question. So you told us the placement needed to be in the kitchen and then the custodial. Is it possible for us to move one of those? I mean, we really have only 3 people in the kitchen that will ever, we don't have people going in and out of the kitchen a lot. Can we put one in the kitchen for custodians and kitchen, and then move the custodial one like into like a tutor room or another safe
Sure.
spot? Or is there a hard line on that?
no, not at all. Not at all. We just felt like those were the people who had to clock in and out a lot. And so we wanted to make it as easy as possible. So if you wanted a 4th even, but if you don't think it's going to get used because they're going to use the computer to clock in or their phones, great, do it that way. I'm fine with whatever you want to do. Those were just recommendations more than hard lines. Sorry if it came across that way. I'm good with wherever you want to stick them, you put them. Just make sure they're in spots where they'll get used. So.
Okay, great, thank you.
Scott, I have one question. I missed the first couple of minutes trying to get logged in.
You're okay.
You said there's a training module, so we can, like, people can actually clock in and clock out without it actually going on the thing. Can you show me what that looks like, or where do I find that?
It's in the, so it's in your PowerPoint, that
Okay.
initial PowerPoint I sent you, there's a link to it, and I think it's
Okay.
the 3rd or 4th sheet. It looks just like Encore.
Okay,
It seriously looks exactly the same, except for it'll have a little yellow bar next to Encore that says training database.
okay,
So- And it functions just like Encore. The only one thing, and this is a reminder to tell you guys, if someone changed their password, let's say that it came up in Encore and told them to change their password, just be aware that if they change their password in the live Encore, it stays the same in the training database because that does not get updated.
Okay.
We
Okay.
updated it this Monday. And so everything from Monday on that changes, they'll use their old password again. We always have an issue with somebody not being able to get in, and it's always the fact that they're using their new password versus their old password. So.
okay. Okay, so but they can actually get in and do their time just as a practice.
Yeah, and it's live right
Okay.
now. You could do it today. If you wanted to
All
hop in there right now, you can go play around with it. So
Perfect. Thank you so much.
you're welcome, Katie.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah.
So, quick question on, are the part-timers and generals in the elementary schools able to get into that training database?
Yeah, your secretary has that PowerPoint. She could share that link with you.
Okay,
And then you'd be able to get into it.
okay, so even my part-timers would be able to?
Mhm.
Okay,
They won't be able to use their phones. Again, no phones, no iPads, but they can get on the computer and do it.
okay, sounds good, thanks.
Awesome. Anyone else?
I have a question really quick. For remote pay, I know we still have to, some stuff has to go through remote pay.
Yep.
Okay, so is that just like a stipend? Those kinds of things go through remote?
Yep, anything that's a one act. So if you're gonna one act something, so I'm gonna give a teacher a stipend for having completed a project. $300. It's a one act, just, yep, you'll do it the exact same way. Nothing's changed there, exactly the same.
Okay, that's what we were trying to clarify. The other thing, my custodial, my facility manager wanted to know, is she putting in her own snow removal time?
So they'll actually clock into, if they come in as a call out, they'll use emergency call out. And that would automatically give them the 2 hours based upon the classified agreement. So they'll just use that emergency call out as their option. So.
Right, thank you.
Mhm. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I know it was an ask on today. I know today's a big day. Let's see, wait, one more question. What about bus duty? Does anyone that does, so if your teachers are gonna do bus duty, they do have to clock in and out for that. That will be a remote pay assignment you'll give them. So if a teacher's doing bus duty, they'll clock in and clock out for that. If a teacher's going to get paid for an hourly type of work and it's a remote pay assignment type of work, then they'll clock in and out for those hours. So. All right, well, have a great Friday, have a great weekend, and enjoy your spring break. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate you coming. See you guys.